Good morning, everybody. Well, it's spring, or almost spring. It's almost warm in my part of the country, and I hope it is in yours. This week, we're starting to look at a little more detail about the court systems. And here we're going to have the chance to examine not just the federal court system, which you did last week, but also state court systems. You will see as you begin to do a little research in your own home state's court system, which is where I suggest you begin, that most state court systems, not all, but most, follow that same three-level pyramid structure that the federal courts follow. There will be an entry level of trial courts. There may or may not be an intermediate appeals level in some of our smaller states, like I think New Hampshire is one. There is no intermediate court of appeals because the population of the state is not enormous, and so a two-level system will suffice. So if you're either going to find a base level of trial courts, an intermediate appeals level, and a highest appeals level, like a Supreme Court, or you're going to find a two-level system that goes directly from the trial court to the state's highest court. As you examine the structure, you'll also notice the jurisdiction of the courts, and that is one of the two legal concepts that we will cover this week: jurisdiction. The other is venue. Jurisdiction refers to, let me say first, to clarify something, that there are several kinds of jurisdiction. The type of jurisdiction we're dealing with this week is called subject matter jurisdiction. And that defines the kind of case, the type, the topic of a case that a court is authorized to hear. So, for instance, you might have a criminal court that's authorized to hear criminal cases. You might have a divorce court that's authorized to hear divorces. You might have a juvenile court that is authorized to hear matters involving children. You would have in the federal system, you'd have, say, a bankruptcy court whose jurisdiction is purely over bankruptcy matters. So jurisdiction refers to the kind of case a court is authorized to hear. Venue, on the other hand, refers to, once you've determined jurisdiction, which has to be done first, then you have to decide where the case should be held. Venue has a geographic component. So let's say, for instance, that I want to file a divorce, and that I want to divorce my husband, and I want to do that in a place where our friends won't learn about it. So I want to file my divorce all the way across the state of Virginia in Virginia Beach, because I'm in the other end of Virginia. Could I do that? No, I can't. Even though Virginia Beach has a court that is authorized to hear divorces, it would not be an appropriate place for me to file my divorce because I don't live there. I've never lived there. In other words, the courts in Virginia Beach have no real interest in the outcome of my divorce. Venue is all about which court has the greatest interest in the resolution of your particular case. So that once you've determined the level of court that would have jurisdiction, then you have to narrow that down to which iteration of that level of court would be the appropriate one to hear your particular case. In a civil case, venue is determined by several factors. One might be the place where the incident that gave rise to the civil matter arose. So, for instance, if you've got a trespass case, it's going to be where the land is that was trespassed upon. Or it could be the place where the defendant lives, because that would be a convenient place for the defendant to hold the trial. And if the plaintiff chose to sue the defendant where the defendant lives, then it would be very difficult for the defendant to object to that venue because it would obviously be a convenient place for him or her to be sued. It might also be where both parties live. However, in a criminal case, determining venue is a much simpler matter because both at the federal and the state levels, criminal cases are held where the crime occurred. If you have a crime that was committed in Dayton, Ohio, then the criminal case will be held in Dayton. You've got to determine which court in Dayton would have subject matter jurisdiction over that. But once you do, you know that the case is going to be tried in Dayton. Now, as we get into our final project scenario, you will see that sometimes one or both of the parties will request a change of venue. They'll request that the criminal trial be moved to another location. The first choice of venue in a criminal case is always going to be where the crime was committed. However, sometimes that's not an appropriate place to try the case for whatever reason. It might be because there's been too much publicity. It might be because the entire jury pool might be too biased against one party or the other. It could be for several reasons, and we will explore those as the weeks go on. But know that, to get back to the concepts that we're dealing with this week, know that jurisdiction has to do with the kind of case a court is authorized to hear, and venue has to do with the location of the trial for that case. So you're determining which court within a certain category would be the appropriate place to file the case. This week also, you're going to be dealing in our discussion board with the structure of your state's court system, but in the short paper, you get to do something that is a little more theoretical, a little more opinion-based, and that is a comparison of the jobs that a federal judge does with the jobs that a state judge does. That's a very badly phrased sentence that I just uttered, but what you're really going to be doing is determining which kind of judge has the harder job. Is it more difficult to be a federal trial judge or a state court trial judge? And you will, in order to answer that question, you have to determine and compare the tasks that state court judges undertake and the tasks that federal court judges undertake, and also the kind of scrutiny each one is under. Which one has a job that is more in the public eye? Which one has a job that is more readily examined by the public in terms of either direct airing of a case, say on television or something, or the press reports of a case? This week also you're going to if you are planning ahead, and I suggest that you do, you're also going to be trying to find a court personnel to interview for our Module 4 short paper, which will be an interview. This week you should go ahead and get your ducks in a row for that interview to take place. Find somebody to interview. Ask around if you don't know anyone who works in the court system. You might have to do what's called cold calling someone, or you might have to visit a court clerk's office and explain your task and ask if there's someone there who would be willing to be interviewed. Once you've found somebody to interview, make sure that you get that person to sign the consent form. You can find the interview consent form under the assignments and rubrics section of the learning module, any learning module. You'll find it listed there. I think that's all I'm going to say. It's almost 10 minutes into this video. I know you're probably tired of listening and looking at me. You can read the announcement that I've made to go along with this video, which gets into a little more detail on jurisdiction and venue and gives you an example. As always, please ask me any questions you have, either in the general discussion board or in the course of our discussion board this week, or just by a direct email to me, and I will get back to you as soon as I possibly can. I wish you the best of luck in this. I think we're going to have fun exploring the tasks of state courts, and I'm always interested in hearing about your particular home state's court system, because we'll have different people involved in the class and see how their state systems compare with each other. You will see, for instance, and I will be quiet after this, that each state names its courts very different things, and that can be so confusing. But we'll work on it together. And I'll see you in the discussion boards. Bye.